Hey everyone, it's Levi from YieldNodes Legal. We wanted to do somewhat of a podcast today and cover some of the updates, introduce some more of the admins, talk about who we are, and sort of give a top of mind on what's been going on in the community. Also, it's pretty tough to keep track of everything flying through Discord. There's a lot of information coming out. So we just wanted to step through each topic and surface what the admins have seen and talk about some upcoming bits. Let's start with some intros. We have a couple people on the call. Jesus, you want to give an intro?
Yeah, sure. I can start with that. For reasons of privacy regarding my job, I will not reveal my real name or my face. I can just give a little introduction of who I am and what I do or did in the past. I'm living in Germany. And to my background, I've founded a startup during the study, and it got quite big very fast, and we've raised 3 times investments of investors, of professional investors, in a 6-digit sum. And after 3 years, we were under the fastest growings in Germany. So we got the chance to pitch at the stock market, at a big event of the stock market, where we got another investment, and we sold or I personally sold all my shares in the 4th year, working as a consultant then with the main topics of overtaking of companies in form of asset or share deals. And since some time now, I'm working as the managing director of an automotive supplying group.
Great. Okay. And also, you are in the admins group on Discord, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Also on the call, we've got Michael Frazee, who first started the Twitter group that eventually landed with everybody moving over to Discord. Michael, you want to give a little bit of intro and background?
Yeah, hey guys, I'm Michael. I live in the United States. I've been an analyst and researcher, strictly with blockchain here for about 6 years. Even coming up on 7 now. I am an Ivy League trained quantitative modeler and simulation specialist. That's kind of my forte. I love breaking this stuff down to the systems that allow them to function in the first place. What is mathematically possible, not possible, risk analysis, things of that nature. I'm currently serving as the tokenomics and game theory lead at a project that is trying to or successfully bringing real estate yield onto the blockchain, both through Ethereum and the Stacks blockchain, which is built on top of Bitcoin. I've been working with them for a little bit over a year now, in that lead role here, and I'm currently looking at working with potentially some Wall Street and Dartmouth Street, which is Boston's version of Wall Street funds, looking at some new head analyst roles here in the meantime. But yeah, at this point, strictly blockchain for a while here. I love it. It's industry that I want to be in for ideally the rest of my career here. So kind of channeling all my specialties towards that and moving from more traditional finance over to even if I were to work at a fund in a more traditional capacity, it would be in their digital asset department at this point.
Excellent. Yeah. And I can't wait to see more of your thoughts and skills on some of the YieldNodes Pro stuff and the blockchain investigation that's been going on over there on Discord. For myself, Levi here. I've already done a docs video, which you can find on YieldNodes.legal. It's over on our YouTube channel as well, YieldNodes Legal channel on YouTube. The short of it is I'm a YieldNodes investor for 1 year and have a significant amount of funds locked up there. By day job, I'm a software engineer in a principal architect position for Microsoft. And my role here is launching the website and trying to build a platform for the investors to be able to speak. That's my primary goal, is to make sure that I ignore words. There's a lot of high emotions. There's a lot of things being said, both for and against YieldNodes. There's a lot of things being said by the investors as well as by YieldNodes. I personally have no faith in in the statements that are being made from either side, but that does not mean that I'm ignoring those statements. I'm taking those statements and I'm seeking for facts, and I'm seeking to resolve those statements. As I've always said, I have high hopes and low expectations, and that's how I'm trying to navigate this situation here, is to let the facts and the truth speak for themselves before I decide how to act. So speaking for the group now, YieldNodes Legal, which I will also go ahead and share my screen at this point. Bear with me. This is our website, which just got an update today. YieldNodes Legal aims to be the collective voice for YieldNodes investors. We do have a confirmed call with Urs, who's the YieldNodes architect. This will be a weekly call. The first one is on Monday. I will post the live stream video here, but it will be live streamed on YouTube. We have a couple more videos that we'll be working on as well, and you can always find the updates here. But be sure to subscribe and not miss that. Schedule for a notification. As I mentioned, it will be live. We will have the YouTube chat turned on as well. Unlike the Liam interviews, which there's a lot of comment and frustration that they're a little too soft. This one will not really be in favor of YieldNodes, but it will also not be personally attacking anything about YieldNodes, but it will be very much factual and asking hard questions and asking for hard proofs. We're not interested in anecdotes or explanations about what the future is going to be. We're more interested in finding hard facts about what it is right now and what we can prove right now. So that'll sort of be the tone. My hope, again, for these meetings is a resolution between the investors and YieldNodes. We have an intake form as well here on the website. It's available right here at this link, intake form. And if you fill out the intake form, that'll add your report here that you see on the left. We're just collecting this information to get an idea about where the investors are, how much is actually frozen, and what exactly we should be asking for in terms of a resolution with YieldNodes. This went into a open letter as well that is also posted here on the website. This open letter was received and acknowledged by YieldNodes and Urs, and they have now posted a response on their website as well. We'll talk about that and more coming up, but that's a little bit about the group and what some of the intents there are of the group. I do want to make a distinction between my personal intents and the intents of the group. The group is deciding for itself what it wants to do, how and when. For example, there are many people in the group who want to report the crime that they believe has happened, and so links have been provided for that. But it's not my personal approach or opinion. I have not filed any crime reports or contacted any law offices. But again, my goal is to give investors a platform to speak their voice and do what they want to do. So we will continue extending this platform for that. It's also worth noting, this has been characterized as a smaller group of investors that are very disgruntled or something like this. We do have over 1,100, maybe 1,200 people on the Discord right now. So it's not too small. It's over $20 million in frozen assets, which is significant. But it's worth noting that from what I can tell, I think most of the group here represents larger investors who had delayed payouts. YieldNodes had a hard time paying people who had asked for large withdrawals in the previous month. So a lot of those people are represented here because they had larger deposits and withdrawals, and people who are also in losses and not in profits. When I check our Discord versus the primary YieldNodes Discord, that's the main difference I see, is that in the main Discord, there's more people who are in the profits or they had smaller investments. They're not as worried, which makes sense. They don't have as much to worry about. People over here are in the negative or they have larger risk. So that's pretty much the facts about the community and about ourselves. We're going to go ahead and go into a few other topics that are notable to this whole situation. Everything that follows from here on out is going to be thoughts that we think we see in the community as admins, and our own personal views as well. So let's go and hop into it. The first one, let me see if I can stop my share here as well. There we go. The first one is about the deadline in the open letter. There have been some questions as to why was the deadline so short. There was a 24-hour notice for YieldNodes to make an immediate response before it was circulated widely. And then there was a 3-day response for them to make a written response to the YieldNodes Legal group. Is that something you can comment on, Jesus?
Yeah, as you've mentioned before, of course, it is our appearance in this video as well as the representative of a community, but also as well as an individual person. And we've already spoken to a lot of lawyers or authorities about our options because, of course, as Levi said, we are highly interested in solving out these problems directly in a discussion and to get our group or the investors in our group out of the loss zone by getting the initial invests back. But if we are alone on this behavior to solve these things in a friendly way and open discussion, we of course have to be prepared to go other steps. And this was a recommendation of the lawyers that the deadlines of this open letter shouldn't be too long because if you're giving a deadline until, let's say, the 1st of December, you cannot do an action before of this 1st of December, since the other party still has time to fulfill what you've asked for. That's why we've set up different timelines or deadlines in this open letter. The first one was to submit or to approve that they've gotten the open letter. This was 24 hours, 3 days as an answer on that open letter, and then 2 weeks for the repayment. Of course, if we see that they are willing to speak with us, are open to discuss, and the most important, they are open to find a solution, we are still able to push that deadline out. So if the discussion on Monday's interview between Levi and Urs will be good, and we have the feeling that they are willing to give us our initial payment back, but need 4 weeks more time for that, we are always able to push deadlines out, but we're not able to like set the deadlines shorter. So that's why we are used to these deadlines.
Yeah, and I want to add there too, because there's been a lot of questions about timeline and what the next action is, and you know, whether or not we have legal representation, et cetera. YieldNodes Legal is not a entity that has formed. It's not a legal entity. It's just the name of this website and people who've gathered together. And there is currently no attorney that I'm aware of that has claimed to represent any of these points in the open letter or any of the individuals in the group. The attorneys I think you're talking about are ones that we've seen hop in the Discord, or friends who have attorneys, or I know Michael knows some attorneys as well. And so these are off the record comments and personal advice from people whose profession is attorney. Similarly, because the group does not have any actual representation right now, I also wanted to note that, sharing my screen again here, the open letter, as I mentioned to Urs and YieldNodes here, I did not author it. And similar to how the group doesn't have an attorney, the admin group, it's not our responsibility right now, at least, to go and find an attorney and claim representation for the hundreds or thousands or however many individuals are in YieldNodes Legal. What we are doing, what I'm doing specifically, is to make sure that the voice of the investors gets heard. And so all the content of this letter, each paragraph was put together by multiple people from around the world in Discord. It started as an outline, and that outline came from a list of bullets, and those bullet points came from individual Discord comments. And so there were some minor English corrections and grammar corrections, etc., spell correct through here. But this was left intact in language to show the true thoughts and emotions and asks and questions of the community that is disgruntled about how things were handled. That would also include this return of funds section. We did our best as admins in the group here and on Telegram to post polls and to work around the clock with all the different time zones that are represented across the world to collect people's feedback and wishes and put that into this ask here. And again, the ask from the open letter was to get a return of the initial investment or the capital that you contributed directly to the platform. That seemed to be what most people in this group wanted, and then they would get out and not care about YieldNodes anymore. So we wrote this up as a group with these, and I say we as a group, meaning the entire YieldNodes Legal community, not the admin group. The community group put this together as a whole, and then there's this agreement here that we will shut down the website. This is the part I would participate in. We'll shut down the website and disband this large organization. At least I will. I can agree to that. If this group of folks got their capital back. If they don't get their capital back, then we will continue on the road that we are with revealing things and doing investigations to prove the claims out one way or the other. I
I
think
would
that's,
also like to just quickly add there real quick. So
Yeah.
even though that we are not currently, we're not currently tasked with going and finding an attorney to represent everybody, if proof of mishandling or of anything else, not only against the contract, but against law and international law in general is found, it was my advice, personal advice through some attorneys that I've spoken to, that at that point a class action would not even be necessary. It should be direct to law enforcement, who will handle all of that on the group's behalf. That was a large point of the intake form, is to have amounts to show them, and so that we can represent multiple people all at once. In that case, we are not necessarily the leaders of that, and this is not necessarily something that I'm going to front run, but it is also the kind of thing where if things are discovered that are infallibly true, then those will certainly be passed along. And I want to make it clear, even though we aren't personally hiring attorneys, we as Levi stated, have the backs of the people in this community, and that's what this is all about.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's been attorneys that have reached out to me, both publicly and privately, on various of the platforms that we have in multiple countries that they're licensed in, that want to assist with that kind of thing if it comes to it. And so just as I assisted putting together this letter, or with the links for crime reporting, or anything else that the community wants, yeah, we will definitely assist with the legal route and the law enforcement route if that's the path that this ends up having to go.
Yeah, I think this is important to point out. As I stated before, we are hoping for a common way together with YieldNode to get our initials out and to solve this quickly and especially without a lot of noise. But I think your last sentence describes it very well. We are willing to go this path, even if they decide that this path is not the friendly discussion together.
Yeah, yep. And that's reflected here at the very top of the website as well, that this site and all these efforts are intended to be our collective voice as investors to negotiate for resolution or prosecute if there's no resolution. And I think that's a good segue, actually, Michael. You mentioned, if there's anything proven as far as misconduct or mishandling of funds or anything like this. Can you talk a little bit about, there's been a lot of stuff posted about the Binance lock, or about wallet tracking, markets, things like that. Can you just give a light summary on what you've seen in Discord?
Yeah, definitely. So I wanted to start with, even though we are asking for the initial deposits back, there is a time value of money. $1,000 worth today, or $1,000 today, is worth significantly more than $1,000 a year from now. And that is quantifiable. It's net present value. It is something that I am able to pretty easily create a model for, and to show, in whether it's a court of law or to the community or in any other setting, that that 6 months plus that people have been waiting, that has a value to it. And it is it is trying to go the route of least resistance by asking for the initial deposit back, because in the eyes of a court or in the eyes of law enforcement, that likely would not be the case. It would likely be that plus some percentage added on top. That would account for opportunity cost, that would account for risk involved, things of that nature. Regarding evidence for Binance, things of that nature, so we have determined the account. Unlike what was stated in this video today, our actions have nothing to do with Binance's actions. They will not even share information without a court order or without specific instruction from law enforcement. And
yeah, if I can
none of
hop in there real quick, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but just to provide double clarity, when you say this video today, you're referring to what video?
I'm sorry, yeah, the most recent video that Stefan posted today, giving the current state, where he was interviewed by Liam, that just came out a couple hours before we recorded this
Yeah.
on October 21st here.
Okay, yeah. So in that video, he claimed that Binance was contacted by many of us and locked the funds, or is further locking the funds due to actions of the group. I believe you were one of the first to actually get news of Binance being contacted. Were the funds frozen due to the efforts of the group, or already frozen before the group was even formed?
Yeah, I mean, it's my understanding they were frozen before the initial email even came out that started all this commotion in the first place. We were able to figure out which account that they were discussing, but Binance makes actions completely based off of what Binance wants to do. If Binance froze those funds, it's because Binance believes that a crime was committed. It is because Binance believes that there was some activity that is going on that warrants investigation, and that they fear releasing those funds could bring legal liability to them. That has nothing to do with us. Regardless of how many of us there are, they would not release that information to us. They would never freeze anybody's funds based off of the opinion of anybody other than law enforcement, legal in certain cases, or they're, in this case, likely their own risk department, their own analysts. And for anybody in this industry to call something else a bad actor is pretty significant. So Binance is not a perfect company. Exchanges are not perfect companies. There's no such thing. But for them to go that far to make those conclusions and to freeze it on their own, that's certainly not our actions. And I'm sure that quite a lot of work went into determining that in the first place.
Yeah, and I'd just like to remind people as well, there had been for a long time in the newsletter updates coming from YieldNodes, there had been statements by Steve repeatedly that we're being accused of a scam. We're having difficulties with exchanges, things of this nature. I know that he also posted a video proving that some funds were locked on an exchange, and if I'm not mistaken, that was Binance as well, where he showed the date time web page first to prove the date that he's showing it, and then he showed, look, our funds are locked up. I believe that was right around the incidents of October 8th and 11th. So yeah, to somehow think that the later formation of the legal group caused the funds to be frozen, when in fact the group was formed because the funds were frozen, seems to be backwards on that point.
Yeah, and also just to, sorry for interrupting you, but just to clarify that, because of course we've written in the open letter that we have the approval of Binance for a corporation. This is what Michael just said before. Their answer exactly was that they would be happy to help us, or they are willing to help us, but they cannot before before the contact is not taken by an authority, or even maybe by a lawyer who has opened the case. But without one of these two, they are not able to provide us anything, but they will be happy to do so as soon as one of these two parties contact them. So
yeah, and I
they
did see,
confirmed us. Yeah, they confirmed us that they are willing to cooperate with us, and they will cooperate with us as soon as we involve one of these two parties, which we decided against, as long as we have the impression that YieldNode is willing to speak seriously with us.
Yeah, I did see somebody post a screenshot of a response from Binance stating exactly what you just said, and somebody else had given an explanation there in Discord that usually they require the notice to come from a law enforcement agency, but given the number of responses, they may cooperate with an attorney rather than just law enforcement agencies. So there was perhaps that one change of Binance's position, or perhaps that influence on them from the number of reports that they received. But again, this was very early on in the forming of the Discord, and prior to the community having any kind of organized action. This was just individuals, doing what they wished. On the same vein, what about wallets? This is something that's come up to wallet tracking. You want to touch on that a little bit, Michael? I know you've been doing some blockchain analysis. People have been sending you wallet addresses. Maybe just give us a little teaser preview on what it looks like you're finding over there.
Yeah, definitely. So that's currently in process. I'll be presenting all of that. I'll probably even be doxing myself at the time, just to further show at that point that I do believe in what I have found. But at this point, it does seem interestingly that even though that they claim Binance is frozen, which it seems like they are, and of course our actions would not freeze it any longer than Binance already wanted to freeze it. It appears to me that Binance actually is not their largest exchange by a long shot. It appears as if there's quite a few other exchanges that have had amounts sent to them that by themselves, small amounts, small percentages of what have been sent to some of these other percentages could easily make this entire group whole. And some of my questions that raise from that is, especially when the assets that were sent to these exchanges are the very same assets that they claim to use on Buyrake for masternoding or for purchasing masternoding coins, then why are you converting it? Why are you sending it to an exchange in the first place? Why are so many stable coins, which a lot of them are, being sent in ways that would infer they are being converted into fiat currency? Why would assets that are used actively in the noding process, why would those need to be bounced between these different exchanges in the first place? That's a large part of what comes to my attention. I am very into, at least previously was into noding myself, both mining and validator nodes. Smaller nodes just to play around with. Those don't really pay out the same way that validator nodes do. So this has been an interest of mine for a while, and I would expect to see quite a lot more private wallets in comparison to exchange wallets. It also appears that there have been some funds that will go directly from the YieldNodes deposit wallets, and when it goes and says, oh, it's been masternoded in your UI updates, I've found some examples where it goes straight from that deposit wallet to an exchange, to exchanges. Again, why? Especially in cases where those assets were already the end asset that they claim they want to purchase with. I mean, on their website, they claim that they use USDT, that they convert everything into that. I've had some people tell me, oh, no, they use Bitcoin. Well, there's examples of each. So in either case, they were either building a stablecoin reserve that they claim to not have, or it seems as if things have been converted to fiat for other projects long before this was ever announced. I would also like to quickly state that the most basic 101 risk management policies would prevent this exact situation we are in. You don't need the next superstar quantitative modeler to put systems in place that prevent things like this. They could have created a very simple accounting deficit model. And they even are the ones that set the times. They're the ones that set the 6-month deposit times, meaning they would have had at least 6 months to know that come September, come October, this amount of funds would be due. In which case it would be standard practice for any company, even companies with 10, 100 times less funds than what YieldNodes has been dealing with, to have that plan beforehand, to convert amounts into stables if that is what's required, so that it's ready when it happens. Sure, maybe the return that month goes down slightly, but isn't that preferable to the situation we find ourselves in? And I find that most companies in the entire world tend to agree with that. And that is not even going into forecasting models, into further more advanced risk management. That is just what a first-year accounting student would learn how to do, would be how to create a deficit model and how to prevent situations exactly like this, especially when given at least 6 months in advance.
Sure. Yeah. It makes perfect sense. I mean, it even rings true with just simple common sense. It's bouncing a checkbook. If you write checks and you send them out, you know that you need to make sure your bank account has that much in there until those checks are cashed. And it's a very similar thing with the deposits and what you're saying there. Needless to say, we will have, as was posted in Discord, we will have a dedicated video to this whole topic and show some blockchain analysis for quite a few wallets and quite a few interesting things and quite a few questions that must be answered will be raised. So we will be posting it on YouTube as well. Let's move on here to risk disclosure, because this seems to be perhaps maybe the number one thing that comes up. Is this is what you all signed up for. You knew that this risk could happen. You knew that the loss of funds could happen. I'm sorry that you overinvested. We told you every email, every video, do not overinvest. This is high risk. I want to make one short comment about this, and then I want to get your guys' input on it too. And I'm only going to touch on the we told you not to overinvest part, because this is often used to dismiss any other claim or any other valid point around this topic of the risk disclosure. I personally did not overinvest, but whether or not a person overinvests or not has no bearing on whether or not the claims of the risk disclosure and the happenings on October 11th are valid. As an example, if I were to lose, I don't know what my total is right now in there. I know my total deposits were 260,000, and I think there's 170 and change that are still locked in there. If I were to lose that, whether or not I am upset because I overcommitted that much has no bearing on whether or not YieldNodes actions were legitimate or legal or illegal. So that's the one thing that I wanted to clarify. The other bit that I wanted to clarify is that the risk disclosure does not speak about anything other than master noding, which we would all agree to those risks. Master noding includes buying up tokens and staking them and setting up a full node around that stake. It also includes the returns that would come from that master node. That master node receives brand new tokens, and that would be part of the profit there. Those risks were understood. I certainly understood how master noding worked. I master noded 4, 5, 6 tokens myself in the Decenemy network. I had no problems with those risks and understanding that I could lose those funds if something were to happen within that network. What YieldNodes did on October 11th is beyond anything in the risk disclosure. That was seizing assets, not a failure of the master nodes. It was not a drop in the market. It was not anything other than their personal choice to decide to seize the funds and to cancel withdrawals, 2 of which I had pending. That was not a risk that was put in the disclosure. There's no line that I could find that says, something that would justify the owners may at any time immediately stop all transactions and take all of your funds and go launch any other business that they feel is worthy. If that were in the risk disclosure, I absolutely would have not invested as much as I did. I invested as much as I did based on the risks that were outlined in there, and also the FAQ questions that were posted on their website and the homepage that was on their website, and my personal experience with master noding. I was comfortable with that set of facts and that set of risks. But that's kind of how I see it. Jesus or Michael, you guys want to comment on this?
Well, I think this point is also connected to the point of emergency withdrawals, but I think we will come later to that, because, or my argumentation and answer to that is connected to this point. But in the end, as you said, they are like pointing out this risk disclosure agreement and saying, hey, we have warned you. But of course they've warned you, but they like, if you're living in the middle of a desert, and you're moving in the middle of a desert, and everyone warned you about the heat, and then for maybe God's will, there is coming a huge wave, and the water is raising, and you're suffering cannot breathe because the water is already reached your breast. They cannot say, hey, we warned you, the desert is dangerous. So they are like giving a warning from a very other place, out of a very other direction, and say, hey, just I warned you that it's very hot in the desert. We have warned you for every possible case, and we can just do whatever we want because we said it's hot in there. And what they did is definitely not what was agreed in the risk disclosure agreement.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like it's the kind of thing as well where exactly you can't, unless it probably very specific instances I'm not aware of, definitely not this one, give just a blanket statement to things that are not listed in that contract. It is certain activities were listed in this agreement, and it is going outside of that now at this point. It is also stated within it, which today Steve was very quick to mention, oh no, we said as long as you are paid every quarter, at least 5% every quarter, then our agreement is fine. But they use the term average, which is a very specific statistical term, and I'm sure all of us know what that means. But the average, due to their current plan, is going to be 1.66 repeating percent per month, which by itself voids the agreement. And if we're going to just really take the agreement literally at this point, and what the agreement or the website as a whole says at this point, then why weren't assets and investments made with stable coins in the first place as they were claimed? Why was this not a euro-pegged, euro-based investment? If we're really going to get literal with the agreement, I would argue that they have broken their own agreement far more than we could even attempt to in our scenario of trying to recover these funds, of which we'll go more into this in detail in the future. But just with some preliminary math here, going from 130% reserve 2 months ago to a 10% reserve today is mathematically impossible. They could have been invested in their riskiest assets, and it would still be mathematically impossible at the time of the email. We'll go more into detail on all of this in the future, but it doesn't cover quite the scope, not even near the scope of where they're trying to direct things now, and it, in a sense, is creating an entirely new contract from an existing one, which is not how it works.
Yeah, that's how I personally see that as well. So you kind of touched on the 10% left already, and about the mathematical bit on that. I've asked for some data to be put together to see if it's possible to actually get from that figure down, and so far, yeah, it's looking like that's not. And you're right, we will cover this more in depth later. Did you want to add anything to that, Jesus?
I mean, if leverage was added there, then that's possible, but this was not pitched as a leveraged investment, so I certainly hope that wasn't the case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, in the end, you will show it in a very, very easy, understandable, visible way why this is not possible. I just want to point out that their answer on our open letter was like, they did not went into any point that we have asked openly and that we have figured out why we are thinking that. So our next step will be that we are proof what we are thinking. But as Michael said, it's a pure mathematical thing. To come from 130 to 10%, you have to lose 93% of your value.
Mm-hmm.
And even their worst coin did not lose 93% of value, even not after the in the first 24 hours after their announcement of freezing everything. So usually we have to look at the point before that, but even after that they did not. So there would be only one reasonable answer for me why they're saying they're only having 10% left, and this would mean, as the answer on the open letter states, they are holding their whole values only in their own coins. And but this would mean that if you're not able to sell these open coins for the value that it's stated, and for example, if there is 45 cents per coin left, and it was €2 at one point, you still have close to 25% left. If you're not able to sell for this 25%, means that there was never any attention or movement out beside the Dicenemy and YieldNodes into these coins, which would mean that they have just pushed and pulled these coins. But we will see that in the analysis of Michael later. But in a mathematical way, there is no way how only 10% can be left.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a great point as well. He just briefly touched there on the liquidity. Yeah, I could have a single coin that is theoretically worth $1 million in an exchange somewhere. If there's no liquidity in that exchange, if there's no one willing to buy that coin, if I were to have 1 million of them and they were all worth $1, if I could only sell 200,000 of those before they crashed to nothing, then I only have $200,000. If I have $1 million worth of liability, then guess what? I just went bankrupt regardless of what my UI on my crypto app says.
Yeah, and this is a good time to echo what I opened with as well, with at least my stance in the community and what I'm trying to support with the community page as well. That we're not going to make an assumption about what it is or is not, but we will certainly collect the hard facts and the hard data that prove and disprove statements made both in our community as well as in the YieldNodes core team there. And this is one that I'm really looking forward to on this 10% left, because we do have wallets, we do have the ability to do on-chain analysis. Even though the claims of you can't prove who owns the address, or dismissing, we move these into stable coins because we then needed to convert them, or et cetera. I've seen enough early data so far to be concerned, and I've seen enough unconfirmed facts that we're in the process of confirming, but that all point to something does not make sense with the story that's been put forward here. Not only can you not get to the 10% that's left, there are vast amounts of money that seem to be still in the possession of YieldNodes, and the way the blockchain transactions appear to have worked, there would be no other possibility for it to be held by someone else. Again, I want to preface that with, there will be a dedicated video on this, and those facts are being confirmed. But as they've been presented so far, and the confirmation that's happened so far, it raises very serious questions and things that we will definitely get to the bottom of. Let's maybe leave that one there for now, and let's segue into this new investment strategy and the NFTs and the $300 million investor and whatnot. Yeah, I'm going to add a little bit of my other background here as well. I think it's kind of interesting, actually, Michael, that your background ended up being so deep into crypto and analytics and modeling, and for you, Jesus, having the business background that you do, being a native speaker in Germany, that can help us analyze some of these claims, because a lot of these companies look like they are over there. Some of my background as well is in real estate as of the last 4 or 5 years, and that spans across residential real estate and commercial and industrial real estate. And I don't want to overstate or understate my experience here, so I'll be a little bit specific. I currently own and operate a number of entities, between 5 and 10 real estate entities. that are organized into a similar structure as to what YieldNodes Pro is claiming to want to put together. And so I do have experience setting up real estate partnerships. I have experience acquiring properties and selling properties, and having new partners come in and partners buy out, as well as dissolving those entities. And so I'm fairly familiar with how ownership certificates work, how the equity process works, and how the ownership stakes are supposed to be handled in those companies. In the early first few years of doing that, I ran all of my own accounting books, and sat with the tax folks personally to make sure I had a very good understanding of how the money moves before I offloaded that to accountants and whatnot. And so just based on that, I still have a lot of questions about how this NFT strategy is supposed to work. And even if this is even a real thing, which we'll talk about that as well. Again, the actual facts and data that are coming up there are not pointing to a good potential that those are going to be actually assets as they're claimed. I hope that's wrong, but that's where the data is pointing so far. And so my concerns with that are, I've seen crypto projects before turn to NFTs when things have gone wrong, and inevitably what happens is any value that they actually had, like let's say people converted dollars to stable tokens and bought into whatever this system was, and they were investing with a certain business model. I've been in that situation before. Let's say the business model crashes, like it has here with YieldNodes. I've been in other situations like that before. And as a result, I've seen other crypto projects turn to NFTs and say, this is going to be so great. Our other model wasn't sustainable, but we're going to do NFTs now. And what happens is the project who has taken all of those funds keeps all those funds, and in return gives worthless NFTs back to individuals. I know YieldNodes has claimed that this is not going to be a picture of a gorilla. That's fine. It's going to represent a real asset. That's also fine, and probably true that it will represent a real asset. The problem is it the actual owner stake in the asset itself? As an example, let's say the three of us buy $1 million building, and we each contribute $333 million or $333,000 to this $1 million building. So we're all holding 1/3 of the building. Michael, you want out. You don't take your ownership certificate and go sell it on OpenSea, where the people don't truly understand what that investment is or have the ability to enter into our operating agreement, et cetera. If you want out, that asset is at risk of being sold, usually, unless Jesus and myself can first buy you out, or there's another buyer in the market who's willing to buy in and take your ownership stake. But that new buyer buying in or you exiting, you actually have legal right to the value of that property itself. So if that property is ever sold, for example, you must receive the value from that property. There's a similar process for any profits and losses that are generated from that property, and there's tax consequences and tax benefits to how that process of cash flow will work. This is technically possible, maybe with an NFT, but the NFT would have to be integrated into the operating agreement of a legal company, and people would have to be legally bound to this entity and to its accounting practices and to its tax laws and all of these things. And then there would have to be accountants on the YieldNodes side to make sure that any let's say it's a rental property or a solar farm or something, any income earned is distributed per that operating agreement to the owners who hold those ownership certificates, and distributed per their ownership percentage. And that's usually quarterly or sometimes annually, or however that's based. That might be possible to structure with NFTs, but not the way that I hear so far YieldNodes explaining it. What they seem to be explaining is there's a real asset. We will own it with all the funds that we've seized from you, but we will give you this NFT. And there's this big gap in the explanation that I've seen, where how this NFT gives me legal right to this piece of property, instead of just having it be a worthless NFT that you can sell on OpenSea for who knows how much money. And what gives me the confidence that YieldNodes, even if they somehow are able to honor this NFT, what gives me the confidence that the same company that is not giving me my withdrawals that were pending for this month, let alone last month, and has failed to operate a much smaller, much more simple business without NFTs and real estate, just the tokens. If they failed to do that and they failed on their obligations so far, what gives me the confidence that they're somehow going to do a better job in the future in a world that they don't have experience in? And to take a claim 10% and 12 exit at 1,200% return to get it back to its 130% value that it was at before. It seems completely asinine to me. It seems like a huge risk. It looks more like an exit plan than a partnership plan, in my opinion. To say, hey, we gave you your value. We said the NFT was worth what your balance was in YieldNodes. You can sell it to someone if you like. That I would have a huge concern with. And these are all things that we'll go into in other videos. But that was my top of mind and some of my concerns and ideas there. What's your guys' thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense, because exactly, I mean, the NFT, at least at this state, it's not conveying any legal rights to any of those profits. They could hand these NFTs out theoretically and shut off whatever mechanism that pays the profit out in the first place. Without the proper infrastructure, proper legal paperwork, etc., that is behind it, it is no different than a monkey NFT. They can put a smart contract in it that'll pay out profit. At that point, it's no different than a monkey NFT that you can stake and make banana token. It does nothing to actually convey the full value of what we have deposited. I don't believe that is going to be a legal way to make up for that deficit. Because again, going back to our example, as if I have 1 million coins and I can only sell $200,000 worth of them before the coin goes to zero, then I never had that $1 million at $1 a coin to begin with. It's the same way in this case here, and in situations like that, there are things such as, again, this is not something that I am accusing, but there are situations where things like that could be considered criminal negligence. They could be considered failure of duty. They could be considered, misleading advertisement, theft through deception. There's a lot of things that are based around this, because there's a lot of people that have tried this very plan. There's a lot of people that have exited like this, which is, today in Steve's video, he mentions, well, why don't they wait to see if everything works first? We're going to make everyone all this money. Everything's going to be great. You guys just got to trust us for another year, etc. It's, this is the type of situation where if there is foul play, people disappear over stuff like this. People just vanish. And it is the kind of scenario where, until we are given reason to believe that we are reasonably going to be paid back, at this point, we've been given very, very little to reinsure us that it is not going to be another repeat of this whole fiasco. Since Levi definitely is more experienced with real estate here, but I am working to tokenize real estate, and even in that process of tokenizing that real estate, it looks completely night and day different than what this would look like. We're partnering with Chainlink. It requires a great deal of data to be moved onto the chain. It requires a great deal of manpower. Steve claiming we should be proud of them because they were able to create 20 blockchains with 35 people. To me, that's not something to be proud of. To me, that's something to be embarrassed of, what successful entrepreneur starts 20 new side projects before they finish the first one? And to me, that's what this all cycles back around to, is, to me, this looks like another side project that'll never get completed. In which case, how is that different than an exit scam? And that is exactly what we're, I'm not accusing that of being the case here, but that is a logical line of thought for anybody that has been in this industry for any length of time. So it is not even necessarily a personal attack against YieldNodes themselves. It's taking experience of what has happened in the past and doing our best to protect this community from that ever happening.
I think you've pointed out a very, very, very important point by saying, what is it worth to create 20 blockchains if none of it is anything worth? That would be like drawing 20 pictures, and these pictures are nothing worth. Of course, you can be happy that you maybe just put the pencil on the paper. But if I told you before that the pictures I'm drawing will bring you money and you're invested to buy me the materials to it, and after I said, sorry, nothing worth, but be proud of me, I just drew a nice picture. This is not the deal that we made.
Yeah, yeah, and I'd like to comment on that 20 website thing as well. Having master noded a lot of the tokens myself and done quite a bit of analysis on them, and maybe I can even share. Let me just see if I have this sheet. I'm pretty sure I have this sheet sitting right here. Bear with me just a moment. I always like to try to be really upfront with what I'm claiming, and so let me just share this so that people can see. Okay.
In the meantime there, while you're looking for that, I was reminded earlier today from Steve's video as well, where he mentions, you know, there's been some things that have surfaced from people where they've shown some of his previous projects with him using a different last name, selling a TurboFap algorithm, you know, quant trading algorithm software, which, you know, from my personal experience, that is likely the most standard kind of foul play excuse in the book, is that it's quant trading. But that's not what worries me there. What worries me is he talked about how he would do it again and has very little remorse for it, when if you go online, it seems to either be Robo Reviews or people saying they lost money. So if he has claimed that he is fine making 7 figures while his user base, you know, crashes and burns, I don't see how we're supposed to feel confidence in this being any different. And if it is a legitimate quant trading software, if he is, you know, indeed, if these bad reviews that have made it online are the minority, and these Robo Reviews are actually real reviews that are just worded very poorly and written very hastily, then I'm more than happy to talk about that. I'm willing to be proven wrong. If he wants to tell me if he's into Brownian motion or if he's into regression modeling or linear programming, I'm more than happy to have that discussion and to be proven wrong and to know exactly what kind of quant modeling was going on. But that statement in today's video by Steve just kind of shows me that, you know, at the end of the day, he feels like he had been successful regardless of the experience of their users. So that is just something I want to make sure is not repeated here.
Yeah. And yeah. So on that, you know, we should be proud for the things that we launched. Launching the website is incredibly easy, as we've shown with YieldNodes Legal. Making a Discord server is free and instant. Any high school kid can do this. Launching the blockchain is obviously more complicated than launching the website, but I wanted to point out, you know, as us, these are a lot of my buys and sells over time, and little notes about what I did with each kind of token. And I tracked both my cash flow for the tokens as well as what the masternode was putting out and its capital value as it changed over time. They seem to have taken down the listings off of some of the sites here, so some of the values are broken. That's why you see the formulas. But suffice it to say, when I went through the potential tokens to buy, I did a fair amount of research in making sure that I understood. You can exclude shares here. I believe this is one of the only ones that's not YieldNodes. But I went to the YieldNodes website. I looked at all their tokens, and I wanted to see if I could masternode them for myself and save the 15% fee, because how hard could it be? And so I looked at the cost of a masternode, what it makes monthly, what you know, my expected ROI would be, how much earnings are left in the payout table for that token and the life of it. It kind of gets into some of the details about how the reward tables work. But I just wanted to show this because I wanted to show how I looked at each token. I looked at how many masternodes were out there. I calculated how their reward table would pay out and what block they were currently on, what the future rewards would be. And I took out all of my costs, etc. And I looked at a worst case scenario of 10% crash and a great case scenario of the token value doubles. So this would be your masternode locked stake drops by 90% or it doubles. And then also looked at its payout and also its historical chart. There was quite a bit more than this, but suffice it to say that I did this for many tokens: Sapphire, Saga, Beacon, Peony, Esca, Dash Diamond. and more that are not in this sheet. What I noticed, especially being a software engineer and putting in all that time in the research, was this was the very first token that kind of captured my attention. This was the Peony token, and it was one of the most impressive tokens in terms of returns and stability on the sites that analyze masternodes. And it was in a somewhat affordable range, although it was pretty expensive. It was much less expensive than Sapphire. And it looked really great to me. I thought, hey, this is awesome. Farming together. This is the use case. And it gives a little explanation about how this token is going to help pasture to plate. I'll probably have to zoom this so people can see it a little bit better, but it's going to help fund pasture to plate agriculture. I thought, okay, that sounds cool. But there's nothing beyond this explanation here. There's no actual business behind this. I couldn't ever see where this showed a farm or any business operations or any people. And I thought, okay, well, maybe it's just a kind of statement about what this business wants to be. And then as it launches, it'll figure it out. But this token had been running for quite some time. If we look at Masternode Biz, and we look at the PNY token, and if you go to this reward table, and actually I probably even have it just here on the stats, you can come in here and check. I did not prepare this ahead of time, so suffice to say, go to masternodes.biz. You can find all of these tokens listed here, and if you scroll through these details, you'll be able to see how long the token has been running. Here we go. Okay, current block time. So here's the block time, and if it makes a block every 60 seconds, 60 minutes an hour, 24 hours in a day, 365 in a year. So you can use this to drill down and figure out, here you go, age, 3 years, 8 months, 11 days. That's what I was looking for. So it's been almost 4 years. This token has amassed a ton of value, and still this was the only evidence of this use case ever coming online. There's also a quote here that's from George Washington, which is another kind of classic thing with these sites. They all have a quote from Nikola Tesla, or a quote from George Washington, or one from Steve Jobs. Even on the YieldNodes website, there's one from Steve Jobs as well. And so I thought, okay, well, that's strange. There's a lot of focus on the coin itself, a lot of focus on these technical aspects. And here's the wallet where you can masternode this coin, and some reviews. Looking back, this should have been the biggest red flag, because if you open up the very next website, Dash Diamond, this is another large token of theirs. Lo and behold, what do you have? Well, you have a graphic that looks a lot like the graphic on this site. You have the same menu, and you have a really cheesy explanation of what this thing is going to do in the world. That's the extent of the business plan, and that's the extent of what you'll find for this business. And then
I'd also like to quickly note that this is in line with what the supposed freelancer or leaked employee came forward and said exactly what they do. So
yes, this was confirmed by that as well. And then here's the masternodes and the reward data. And then here's where you grab the wallet. As you grab these wallets and you begin to masternode with them, you will also notice, it's loading on my other screen. Whoops, I wanted that to be up here. Once it loads, that these are also clones of the Sapphire wallet for the most part. They're all the same underlying blockchain technology, just copied and rebranded, to the extent that sometimes the help documentation in these wallets would say the wrong token name. That was kind of a messy way to rebrand that wallet. And so I noticed this with the websites. I noticed it with the wallets, and as well as the GitHub, where the code is stored. This is where the developers do the code. That a lot of these were just forked from the Sapphire and then relaunched with a new pasted website and a new logo and a 1 sentence or a couple paragraph explanation on what the business is. And so should they be proud of launching that many? I would say yes, if they were really functional chains that actually had value and really did do these businesses. But should you be proud of copying and pasting 20 bits of chain code and 20 wallets and 20 websites and then all of them supposedly crashing to 10% value. I think that's a total embarrassment and a total failure. I don't know what there is to be proud about copying, pasting something 20 times over and then having it fail the investors. So
Yeah,
I just want to add
definitely.
some context.
And
That reminds me as well, the context of, he mentioned today how all our tokens aren't going anywhere. Steve mentioned we're going to be keeping all of our tokens. We're going to, the coins that are there will still be there. We're just going to be merging some of them. We're just going to be combining them, making them stronger together. That's not how blockchain works. Are you taking the liquidity from them and merging them? Because that's what it sounds like, taking the capital used to actually give them a means of exchange or to give them a budget, etc., and combining them. Otherwise, why don't we combine Bitcoin and Ethereum and just have an amazing smart contract platform with this super robust proof of work program, and or a program where it's the same developers working on two coins? Why don't they merge it? Why do they, when they need explicit new functionality, go through the headache and the development time of creating an entirely new coin? Why don't they just merge it with their existing coin? And that's because it's just not really how it works on a tokenomic fundamental, or even on a technical kind of development level.
Yeah. Jesus, you wanted to add something in there too?
Yeah, well, to the point, like before the technical points, I've done research. I think it's easier for me as a German native to do that for all the German companies mentioned there. I have done a research on these companies of new investors and this angel investor who is bringing 300 million euros into a burned field to protect other investors from the loss. Many of the things that you've described regarding websites, information, datas, appear on this site too. We'll do another video regarding that, and also show what we've just found. Even it might not be 100% proof that these companies are not as big as they want to be shown or something like that. It's definitely a clear indication. And also, but I think today Steve at least was clear there. They are not getting 300 million euros into YieldNode or assets that are worth 300 million into YieldNodes. Only the coins that are into YieldNodes will represent something in this 300 million euro assets. That was not even clear. Does it represent like the asset ownership? But we all know it won't. But does it represent the margin? Does it represent anything within it, or is it just like a paper that shows these assets? They definitely have to clear that out directly. But what we found up to here for regarding this 300 million euros of assets or not is even worse, and yeah, we'll show that in a separate video.
Yeah, excellent. And the last thing I'll say about this whole new investment NFT and $300 million investor is, do you think there'll be a risk disclosure that we sign? Absolutely. Is that risk disclosure potentially used to cause all losses again, as with this time, and for them to say, we told you it was high risk? And absolutely. Would somebody who's already broken promises and trust today, provably, do it again? Absolutely. And so these are all things that I think would need to be addressed before my highest hope of any kind of good outcome could be realized, is that somehow it has to not look like a repeat of the same thing that we're already doing. And so let's talk a little bit about that, moving forward and resolving these things with the investors. The thing that's being put forward right now is this emergency withdrawal. Let's just give our current thoughts on this, what we see in the community maybe each give a couple minutes. I will start us off. And so with the emergency withdrawals, I think this is a huge mistake. I also think it's a pretty immoral way to go about it. And I'll explain why. There's a total sum value that's owed to this community. And the right thing to do would be to restore that value to the community from the assets of the company and the individuals running that company or companies. So in this case, YieldNodes should give back. Exceptional Media Unlimited, whatever companies are involved, should first give their assets back to the investors. Second, after that, if there's still a shortage, the truly moral thing to do for the owners who founded this and caused the loss to these other people would be for those human owners to take their own assets and also pay those back. I think this rings true with anybody's conscience. I know it does with mine. If I were to form a business and it failed, and I had investors, partners, I would do everything I could to make those partners whole with the assets in the business. And if that was not enough, I would turn to my own personal assets and try to make that true as well. Because at the end of the day, I am an individual. I have a conscience. I've harmed another individual, and I want to make it right. What would be very immoral from my view to do would be to try to take that responsibility from myself and get somebody else to do it. And that's what the emergency withdrawals do in my mind. You have two investors, and they have different levels of panic, different levels of worry, different levels of confidence. And if one of them wants out, having the other investors pay for them to get out takes the responsibility off of YieldNodes and puts it on the investors among each other. And so there's no responsibility taken on the YieldNodes side or from Steve and Urz's assets to make things right. They're saying, let's let them do that themselves. That's the first problem I have with it. The second problem I have with it is it doesn't create actually any new value for anyone, but what it does do is it reduces the overall burden that YieldNodes owes. So imagine YieldNodes as being an umbrella over the top of this liability, and this liability is the total value that is owed to these investors. As they each discount how much they're wanting to be owed now and selling it to each other, there's no new value coming into YieldNodes. There's no value leaving YieldNodes. It's simply moving from one to the other, and the overall liability is simply shrinking for YieldNodes. So it benefits them by getting out of the responsibility. It benefits them by lowering the amount of liability that they have to investors' deposits, and it dodges the right thing to do, the moral thing to do of them making it whole. And so I don't like it in any way, shape, or form. I think it also gives an excuse that things have been made right now because that was the right way to go about it. And that's not the right way to go about it. Liquidation, other assets, I think would be a much more honorable way to go about it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, it's a scenario as well where, the bulk of my investment is due to come out in 2 days, I believe. So even the fact that people are being forced into emergency withdrawals when that's explicitly against what was agreed to in the first place, the whole risk proposition is being changed. They're telling people, oh, you overinvested, which I feel like allows them to deflect part of their moral conscience onto, oh, well, they shouldn't have put in that much money. We even said we only put in this much money. We don't even put all of our money in. Well, it's an entirely different thing if I'm going to invest, a certain amount of money for 6 months or a certain amount of money for a year or for a year and a half, or into a functional business or into a brand new venture that has not been proven yet by a team that has currently failed a previous venture. It completely shifts the risk proposition. It completely shifts the analysis of whether or not I would want to be involved in that. And even the fact that is being used to deflect anything in the first place, to me, is beyond immoral. To me, it's completely ridiculous. And I think going about it in this discount emergency withdrawal way is exactly what Levi stated. It's almost predatory in nature, or it at least create, because at this point I would be willing to bet that we are not the minority of people who would like to be made whole and to walk away from any previous thing. We certainly are not a small minority. And when you're looking at it that way, I mean, it's a kind of situation where there is so many ways to prevent what has already happened. There could be, if they have all of these assets which they claim, these publishing companies and all this random real estate that they claim they have, then take a collateralized loan against your assets and use that portion to pay back the so far roughly 20 million euros worth of people that would like to get out. Otherwise, you're setting up a situation where it is like the most Hunger Games version of an open market you can think of, where it is a bunch of people that know that the people trying to get out want to get out and are desperate. So the game theory is completely broken. And then from there, they are, you know, putting people in positions where they may be desperate enough to accept 30%, 40%, 50%, probably less. But if there's no new money coming into YieldNodes, if there's no new interest, if anything, if the trust has been shattered and if it's more people trying to get out, unless they personally make buys to make it seem as if there's more demand than there are, I have every reason to believe that there's going to be a very limited amount of people even willing to purchase it in the first place, unless it is extremely discounted. And even then, how far can that really go when we're talking about amounts this high?
Yeah, I want to get Jesus' thoughts. I just want to touch real quick on one thing that you said there about they should buy. I think that would be a fair deal, that if people could post in YieldNodes, here's how much I want out, and YieldNodes paid for it. Even that would be better than turning investors on each other who are in a panicked and unstable state.
Certainly, because it's the thing. Can you imagine any other scenario in history, whether it's a stock market or crypto or anything else? If you know, when Luna was collapsing, they weren't offering this to each other. When Enron collapsed, they didn't offer for people to buy out existing shares, or even completely complicit, non kind of iffy businesses like Enron. It's the kind of situation where that has never been an accepted practice of unwinding liability and you know, responsibility to your users or to your investors, especially when this has been described to us the entire time explicitly as a quote server rental contract. And it has morphed to the point where it is completely unrecognizable to that point. And I think it is only logical for people to want to walk away from such a large change.
Do you have anything to add, Jesus?
Yeah, I mean, you've said a lot of the things that are in my thoughts too. I just want to point out that they are doing a very, let's say, questionable psychological thing on this with this move, because they are calling that an emergency withdrawal, but this has nothing to do with an emergency withdrawal. They are from the psychological side making you feel guilty that you're asking to put your money out, and you are in the position to ask to get your money out, but just because they are such great persons, they are allowing you to put your money out with a small discount. This is not the case. We're not speaking about the 6-month locking time, as Michael just stated before. 6 months is a very big difference between a year. And everyone, even if he invested 1 day before they shut down everything, only calculated with locked up funds of 6 months. So if they are saying now they will lock up that for a year, and then you will have an NFT not knowing what it's worth, that has nothing to do with an emergency withdrawal, or that you have to ask for your money and ask for them to be pleasant to give you that with a small discount. This is the very wrong way. You're not guilty for asking for your money, and that's why this 80% or whatever in the end it will be, I think it will be more 8% than 80 what someone is bidding on your values, but you don't have to take any discount because you're not guilty to asking for your money. And as the last step, and this is the only positive thing that I see in it, they're speaking about the emergency withdrawal and the 80%. So our positions aren't that far away from each other anymore. We are asking for 100%, you're offering 80%. Now we only have to agree on the 100%, and that YieldNode is paying it, and not other investors, and we're completely fine. We can solve that within some weeks, and then everything is solved. But to play the psychological game, call that emergency withdrawal and make the people feeling bad to ask for their money is definitely wrong. And in the end, I want to point out that with these, you're hitting the most weakest and most depending on money people with this move, because they will be the ones which will sell their values very low because they are depending on money. And speaking about they are the moralic great guys and want to do everything right, and then put in front the weakest people and the weakest humans, which are maybe trying to feed their family or will have after the winter, with the raised energy costs and big invoice to pay, and calculated with getting the money out after latest 6 months, and now pushing them in front and like have them the most losses because they're depending on it is like the most, I will express it in kind words, questionable thing I've seen within the last years.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to echo what you're saying about the blaming and the characterization that the YieldNodes team is doing. I think is completely inappropriate. And it's honestly one of the things that motivates me even more to fight even harder for this community is I don't know how to characterize that speech other than it's at, well, I won't characterize it, but when they say, this is your fault because you invested too much. This is your fault because you should have read the risk disclosure. You signed it. This is your fault because you were gambling and trying to sell so much tokens that it crashed the system. But even though it's all your fault, we're going to go do this wonderful thing for you and allow these emergency withdrawals because we understand this. It's such a reversal of the characterization. The party who has seized the funds says, we aren't going anywhere. We haven't done anything wrong. But from my side, you've taken my money hostage. You have committed theft if my funds are not returned. For the thief to say, I will allow you to take a large haircut, a large discount on your funds, as long as it doesn't affect me because I'm so honorable, is another reversal of the correct characterization. The truly right thing to do for those who are in a hurting position would be to go and rescue them yourself, not to pawn it off onto somebody else.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
and to me, the language as a whole is very much reminds me of an abuser and how an abuser entraps their victim by blaming the victim for the abuse that was caused. This is your fault, whether it's a physical abuse or any other kind of abuse. If it's a physical abuse, there's a threat, hey, this happened because you were so bad. And that's why I committed this physical abuse against you. I hear that from YieldNodes. Hey, this happened because you overinvested. You didn't read the risk disclosure. You were a gambler and a speculator on our market and you crashed it. First of all, that has nothing to do with your actions seizing our funds and taking them hostage. So that's a reversal and abusive language. To then make a threat, as Steve did in his first interview with Liam, that we need 100% of people behind us on this is what was stated. And this is a paraphrase, but I posted the exact quote on Discord. We need 100% of everybody behind us. And if you think that we're going to unfreeze your accounts, if you are somebody who has participated in a legal action or any kind of action against us, why should we help you, or why should we benefit you by unfreezing your account if you did that? That is also completely not only unprofessional and gangster talk, that is more abuser dynamics. If you're so upstanding, sorry, we got a storm over here, just blew something over my window. If you're so upstanding and transparent and moral that you're going to uphold everything you said and maintain your excellent character, why then go raise a big threat stick that says, if you disagree with me, I'm going to freeze your funds even more? And why view yourself as a savior that can bless people who agree with him and unfreeze your funds, but the ones who disagree will be punished? I don't buy that language at all. And I'm absolutely not intimidated by that language at all. As I said, that is honestly the thing that is motivating me more in this is that kind of character.
Right. I don't believe there's a single court both civil or criminal in the world, which I hope it does not get to that point. I hope we do not find anything to warrant that. But there is not a single jurisdiction in the world where that kind of activity would be okay. There are countless ways that people are able to wind down similar positions like this on a regular basis. There's entire consulting firms based around it. Heck, someone, I've even worked indirectly through projects working on things such as this, where as soon as their reserves reached a critical level where it began to be an issue, there would have been so many courses of action to take. For example, they could have frozen withdrawals, or I'm sorry, not withdrawals, frozen deposits for more yield noting. And they could have started accepting deposits for this new real estate venture, real world asset venture that they wanted to go on. From there, they could have wound down the current investors on the regular schedule if they were following normal risk management practices with a normal deficit model. They would have had plenty of time to arrange that and to put everything aside explicitly for that, and they'd still even be able to accept new investment while they do it. But I agree with Levi, it's predatory almost in a sense.
I mean, what you're describing is the typical way of restructuring a company, and this is like not a big secret. This is done 100 times a day all over the world. This is the normal way to restructure a company with shareholders that don't want to participate on this company anymore. The second thing related to the behavior that Levi just took before, I just wanted to mention that it seems like in the last hour or in the last 2 hours, there were announcements that you are only able to stay on the official YieldNode Discord if you are sharing your Discord name inside of your YieldNode account. Otherwise, you're not able to read or type. I just want to point out that in the last days, some of the Cult of Believers just joined our Discord, and when we said, hey, we don't want to discuss anymore about the opinion, if what they're doing is correct or not, this is the Discord for people which already made this opinion. Of course, we're respecting each opinion, but we don't want to do this conditional discussion again and again in the chat. We were like accused of shutting people down, and I can truly say, up to date, we have never time-outed, banned, or thrown anyone on our Discord. We have always tried, or we have always done to solve it out, to show that we respect each opinion, but that for some opinion, there are better places to discuss them, even if we respect them. And we are accused of being the noisy, small, childish community. But if the official, and I mean, they're using Discord as their official way to communicate with the investors and with everyone out there. If the official way to communicate is not available for you, if you're not willing to connect your online identity, as I have one in Discord. Of course, my real name is not Jesus Soldier. If you're not willing to connect your virtual identity with your real world identity, you're not allowed to participate anymore on the news and discussions. That's very critical in my eyes too.
Right. I also, what worries me when I hear talks such as what we heard from Steve's video today is for any further actions to be blamed on, well, if it wasn't for that noisy class action legal group, then we could have paid you all back. If only they didn't call all these exchanges, if only they didn't make all this noise. We told you that we needed 100% of you, and unfortunately, we don't have 100% of you. So therefore, we wipe our hands clean and walk away. That's not how it works, and I don't believe that you will ever find anybody in a professional place where that matters, or in a place of power that matters, that will ever agree with that statement.
Yeah, and I mean, in the end, every shareholder meeting is a discussion, because shareholders always have different opinions. And this behavior, again, states back to the same behavior as before, blaming everyone else for things that are going wrong, beside the one who is really responsible for it.
Yeah, and I just want to say too that I'm not concerned with those kind of accusations that, oh, it's the YieldNodes Legal group is the reason we can't pay you. Everybody in their right mind knows on October 11th, they said, there's no way we can pay you. It's going to take a year. And we need to launch this ridiculously large, complex business with a lot of risk, and it needs to go very well. By their own admission of 10% holdings of our money, they would need to 12x the returns in order to get us back to where we were. That was their claim. Then showing the video that the funds were frozen on the exchanges, the constant emails about how they're being accused of scam and constantly having to prove things. My September withdrawal, which was delayed also for the same claims, to then somehow say, after we lost all the funds, after we claimed everything was locked, after we said there's no way we can pay you, the disgruntled group that arose that said something doesn't look right, they're the reason we can't pay you. You would have to be very simple-minded and struggling with facts and understanding to not know that that's a lie. I want to share my screen really quick just to wrap up this topic here, because I made another claim that I want to back up. Here we go. This is a transcript from the video. There's the link to the video on the screen. It was by Crypto Yields UK, where this threatening behavior and language was put forward by Steve. This is a quote from him. This is also an important point that I want to mention, is that a few people are considering lawsuits, obviously a reference to our group early on. And if they want to make them or do them, this is in their rights. They can try to sue the company. But they signed this, and everyone signed this agreement that they could, that the money could be lost. So they would be burning a lot of money going through the motions. Here's the key part. But what we certainly will not do is we will not reward that kind of behavior by unlocking their accounts and bringing our assets in to reward that kind of behavior. Because if you don't condone it, or even if you're frustrated, you need to be with us on this. This is not transparent practice. This is not honest business practice. This, to me, personally sounds like gangster intimidation of saying, I've taken your assets hostage, and if you don't comply with my demands, I'm not going to reward you. So it's framed as a reward to unlock your account. And the threat is, even if you don't condone what we're doing, even if you're mad about it, you must be with us on this. What's funny about this double framing is you've already frozen our accounts and haven't unlocked them. So to threat that you're going to freeze them and not unlock them, it makes no sense. There's no leverage in this statement. You've already told me my funds are frozen. You've already told me that it's going to be locked for at least a year. You've also said you don't have the money to pay it back. So to then try to say that you now have some kind of power over me to do exactly what you've already done is also nonsense. So I did not respect this from a moral standpoint. I'm not intimidated or worried about this at all. I will definitely publicize and make public if they lock my account. If they take my funds, I would absolutely put that out. That would certainly must be some kind of violation of law, I'm sure, to have a single investor singled out and treated this way.
Without a doubt.
You disagree with my views.
Definitely. And he also states in minute 11:30 in this video that he does not recommend it and we will regret it later.
Yes.
But they know that they need to give us the choice for a withdrawal, even if they package that in this emergency withdrawal. He's stated himself that he need to give us this choice. Of course, we can only interpret if they are meaning the moralic or the lawsuit side, but from my personal view, they, even from the law side, they have to give us the choice to withdraw, and not an emergency withdrawal, a normal withdrawal. So he also stated that himself on minute 11:30 in the video.
Yeah, thanks for that. Well, I know this video is super long, and we'll add some chapter marks in here for people too. Maybe we'll even break this up into multiple topics as well, so people can digest easier. But let's kind of bring it up to a wrap here. obviously there's been a total destruction of trust. Not only by claims made about YieldNodes, let's forget about all the claims, and let's forget about the high emotions, and let's forget about the speculation, just the actions. The fact that the value dropped from 130% collateralization to 10, that's untrustworthy in itself. What's extra untrustworthy to me is, when did you notice it was 10%? On October 11th? If that's the first day you noticed, that is so reckless and incompetent. It is completely untrustworthy. Anybody who didn't monitor the balance from July to October and suddenly realized, oh my God, it looks like we've lost all the collateral plus 90% of the capital that was there, and just rushes out an email to Steve and says, I just figured this out. That person has no business managing their own finances, let alone the finances on the scale that we're talking. Let's say that you didn't discover it at that last point. You were competent, you were checking it weekly, daily, monthly, hourly, you had alerts, you had backup plans. When did you notice it was 100% collateralized? Where's the email that says, investors, we are 90% collateralized, we are under 100. Here's why, here's how. That's what a truly transparent person would do. A truly transparent person doesn't talk constantly about how transparent they are. A truly transparent person does transparent things. A transparent person certainly would have said at 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, all the way down this line, there should have been multiple notices to the investors that something is not quite right. Hey, we're going down, some kind of notice. Obviously, I think there's a fiduciary responsibility on the team to have done that they failed to do. Whether they did that by mistake because they're not capable of being trusted with their skills, or whether they did it on purpose because they're not trustworthy, honest people, does not matter. There's no other option for that. You either did it by mistake or on purpose. Another bit would be, as this decline happened, there was continual promotions being put out, lowering the deposit amount, encouraging more deposits, putting up the emergency withdrawal feature, offering 10% on SAP, reporting profit and not reporting any capital losses on October 8th. We had the first week of October, 1.3% profit was reported. Nobody's dashboard showed any loss of profits. It was posted on Twitter. More people were encouraged to deposit. I've seen plenty of people messaging, unfortunately, who deposited right before the lockup. And that person was actually criticized by ERS for signing the risk disclosure and understanding all the. Surely you knew the week before that this was a failed model, all the money was gone, and there was no way to get it back. And you still took that person's money and now took it hostage and seized it. Unfortunately, although I maintain high hope that this thing will turn around, my expectation is very low that it will, because it's so far gone already. I mean, I believe in miracles. So if there's a miracle, we can turn this thing around. But again, I can't find a single shred of evidence so far that is trustworthy, or any actions that are showing me trust to turn this thing around, other than the self-promoted claims of the perpetrators of the event themselves. And that is certainly nothing to be trusted. Any thoughts on this, guys?
Yeah, I guess I'll just end on a couple notes here. For starters, in regards to us wasting a whole lot of money if we were to pursue getting our money back. For starters, it is every action we will take will have been so thoroughly researched and documented by that point that we're not going to go forward with claims that we don't know for a fact that we cannot back up. We are being extremely thorough there. I have so much work digging through wallets that people have been awesome and helping me with. Jesus Soldier has been digging through tons of paperwork as well. Levi has been doing an amazing job helping to keep all of this organized and helping to keep everything communicated with the public. But even at that time where we do go, and if that is the forced way to proceed, there is almost no chance we're going to pay anything for the retrieval of our funds. We could fight this for years without a dollar out of our pocket. Matter of fact, it might even be subsidized by certain governments at a certain point. But not only, but one way or another, it is not going to come out of our pockets to fight for our own money back. Almost certainly not. I would also like to state the fact that anyone could believe they are such a savant that some of the brightest minds in cryptocurrency at some of these different exchanges labeling your company as doing something improper. If you believe you are such a savant that your opinion outweighs multiple risk management analysis, etc. departments, they might not be perfect companies. They might not even be good companies in some cases, but they're certainly not all idiots, and certainly not spread between all of those people. Their decision to freeze funds was based off of their findings. Our activities not only didn't get it frozen in the first place, it will not continue to have it frozen unless they have reason to believe that it should be frozen. So, and we'll present more as we find it. But as I dig deeper, it seems as if the 20 so million euros that this group is asking to leave is very reasonable in amounts that have been sent over the blockchain, and would likely even leave them with more than enough to continue their other ventures. So we'll continue digging into that. We'll continue documenting. We'll continue researching. And if we are forced to fight for our money back, it will be it will not be out of our own compensation. We will be able to do this for as long as we need to until resolution is met and we are made whole. Whether that means things need to be liquidated, whether that means things need to be whatever that takes, even if not 100% of the funds are retrieved through this process, this is not going to be something where thousands of people are hurt and somebody walks away and it's just okay, and they go on to do Turbo FAP 4.0, because I see here there's a 3.0 now in a couple of years. So
Any last words on that, Jesus?
Yes, sir. I think I can only, or I would mostly repeat Michael's words if I would say what is in my mind. But in the end, it is very important for me to state that we are 100% aware that a legal act of years could end with us not getting any money back. But in my personal opinion, without any legal action, if there is no willing to speak with us and to find a common solution with us, a legal step is the only option to get any money back, or to make sure in the end that even if I don't get money back or we don't get any money back, no one will walk with my money away that is not his money. And also, I want to make a big shout out for the guys which are right now not on this call. For example, Kay, who did a hell of a job in researching different structures and helping to clear out the open letter and open questions, and also to Mavericks, who is sitting in Asia, and the majority of our admin groups comes from America and Europe. So we are always like setting up Teams meetings when it's fitting for us a little bit. So it's mostly afternoon or evening in Europe and morning or midday in the USA. And the Asian guys, especially Mavericks, are setting up their alarm for 2 o'clock in the night to participate on these meetings. And I'm really impressed, and I really feel honored to be part of that. That hundreds of people could do so much in such a short time, and I'm pretty sure that we will continue that our group is going to raise, and I'm looking forward to what is coming, because if we continue to work together like that, I cannot imagine what a few thousands people will do in a few months if we continue this path.
yeah, I agree. I think it's been one of the most astonishing things I've ever seen. What we've covered in here is it's not even like the tip of the iceberg. It's like the inch on the very top of that top. It's like the very peak, because it is amazing to me what so many people coming together for this cause was able to accomplish so quickly, the amount of documentation we have, the amount of research we have in all fields. And I want to make clear, I would much rather, as we all would, come to a settlement and receive the money that is rightfully due to us to end this arrangement. But not only have we been told that's not the case, now we're actually being threatened that this behavior, which is likely the only reason that a response was received in the first place, at least direct to us, is going to prevent us from receiving those funds back. We're going to be punished for this. We're going to lose our quote unquote reward of receiving the funds that have already been locked. Well, I believe, like many people in here, we've already seen that money is lost when you sent us that email telling us it was lost. So when we're told things like that, as Levi has stated, it makes me all the more motivated to spend as much time as I need to make sure that this comes to a resolution, hopefully with YieldNodes itself. But even if it doesn't, I think that regardless, your people like MB who have helped me tally things, anyone that has sent me all of their addresses over time, witnesses we've had come forward, I think that one way or another here, things will reach a resolution, and I hope that it is a quick and negotiated one. But if it's not, we are in a great situation to do what we need to do, and that is because of the awesome community that is formed around this and all of the time people have been willing to volunteer towards that.
Yep. I will share my screen one more time and lead us out here with some next steps and some updates. So this is from the announcements channel in Discord, but this here was the podcast format video. This will go up on YouTube very, very soon. All links are always available on the website YieldNodes.legal. We do have 2 more videos planned coming up. We will have a deep dive investigation into the $300 million investors and the real assets, including analysis of those company structures and their officials. We will have a video as well that shows some of the blockchain analysis of YieldNodes transactions, both money in and out of YieldNodes, and what that seems to indicate. And of course, the big one that probably most people are waiting for is the meeting with ERS, which is Monday, October 24th, 7:30 p.m. Central European Time and 10:30 a.m. Pacific Time. This will be a live broadcast on the YieldNodes Legal YouTube that has been arranged and agreed. So definitely don't miss that. And then just echoing your guys' last thoughts there too. Still here for the community, going to be here for the community. We're not going to back down. We're not going to stop. We are certainly not going to be intimidated, and we are not going to believe any story that we are given. We will give benefit of the doubt, but we are going to prove it out unequivocally, something that can be verified by any party and rings true with the consciences and the reason of everyone in the community. So Jesus, thank you for staying up so late. Michael, thank you for joining as well. And thank you to everyone who's in the community. We'll see you around.
Have a great night, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.